Frederick Mitchell, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Immigration of the Bahamas.
Ahora la palabra.
I now give the floor to His Excellency Adel Ahmed Al-Jubeir, Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السيد رئيس الجمعية العامة معالي الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة.
In the name of God, the Merciful, the Compassionate, Your Excellency, the President of the General Assembly, the Secretary General of the United Nations, ladies and gentlemen, 70 years have elapsed since the inception of the United Nations. We gather today to recall together the principles and purposes of the United Nations Charter. My country was a founding and signatory member in 1945. We all realize that the United Nations saw the light in the wake of 2 world wars with exorbitant financial and human costs, which makes us realize the importance of promoting the principles of the Charter, which aim to establishing security and stability in our world. Paramount among them, the prevention of destructive and lethal wars and conflicts. We should recall that the main principle and goal is the maintenance of international peace and security, which can only be achieved by the promotion of justice and equality for our nations and respect for international law, notably the principle of state sovereignty in accordance with the 1648 Convention, which established the independence of states and their sovereignty as the basis of contemporary international world. The Palestinian question is a permanent item in the agenda of UNGA. Despite all the initiatives and opinions that have been presented to date, the Palestinian people continue to suffer and continue to be deprived of their right to live in dignity, in a flagrant defiance of international law and the resolutions of international legitimacy. We urgently need a solution to the Arab-Israeli conflict based on relative Security Council resolutions and the Arab Peace Initiative that we have provided 13 years ago, adopted by the Arab and Islamic worlds, garnered wide international support in order to establish the Palestinian state, the independent Palestinian state with Al-Quds al-Sharif as its capital. This is why we repeat our denunciation of Israeli violations of the Aqsa Mosque, which exacerbate the conflict and which worsen terrorism and violence in the world. The crisis in Syria has entered its 5th year. The international community continues to be unable to take decisive resolutions in order to salvage the Syrian people from the machinery of killing, destruction, and immigration operated by Bashar al-Assad, which led to the killing of more than 300,000 people and the displacement of 12 million Syrians in one of the worst humanitarian disasters witnessed in our times. The only solution to this crisis is through a political solution based on the Geneva I Declaration in order to maintain the unity of Syria and to preserve its state institutions, be they civil and military, and to form a transitional council where Bashar al-Assad or those whose hands have been stained with Syrian blood have no place. We will continue to push for such a solution, and we will be among the first countries to support the Syrian people and to alleviate their suffering. The legitimate coalition forces achieved many accomplishments in Yemen, chief among them the liberation of the state of Aden and the liberation of the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb, securing thus international maritime freedom. The military option was the last resort option following the coup staged by the Houthis and Saleh, where they seized the country and they laid siege to the presidential palace in Aden, threatening thus the legitimate president. Therefore, we have conducted the military intervention on the basis of a demand by the legitimate government of Yemen and in accordance with Article 51 of the Charter of the United Nations. We aim to find a political solution based on the GCC initiative and the conclusions of national dialogue, as well as Security Council Resolution 2216. Although we recognize that the Houthis are part and parcel of the social fabrics in Yemen, that does not give them prerogative to own militias outside the framework of the state of Yemen or at the expense of the rest of the Yemeni people. There are parties that are trying to worsen and escalate the crisis in Yemen through the smuggling of arms. The kingdom and the partners are intensifying their efforts in order to provide humanitarian assistance to Yemen. The Center of His Majesty King Salman for Humanitarian Action has provided assistance to the brotherly people of Yemen. His Majesty, the custodian of the two holy mosques, is striving to righten and straighten the conditions of Yemenis who live in the kingdom by providing them with employment and by providing them with education and health care. Convinced that the realization of the principles and objectives of the United Nations Charter should focus on the maintenance of security and peace the world over, we were among the avant-garde of nations calling for a zone free of all weapons of mass destruction in the Middle East. This is why we welcomed the recent agreement between the group of P+1 with the Islamic Republic of Iran, which prevents Iran from the acquisition of nuclear weapons. We also call on Iran to renounce its negative interventions in the Arab affairs and we are desirous of building good neighborly relations with Iran based on mutual respect and good neighborliness and not interference in the affairs of other countries. We also call on Iran to end its occupation of the 3 Arab islands of the United Arab Emirates. We are among the states that were targeted by terrorism. We continue to fight against terrorists, and we are determined to uproot the phenomenon of terrorism. We are among the first countries that are combating terrorism in all its aspects and to dry out its financial resources. We denounce the attempt by terrorists to attribute their crimes to Islam, while our religion calls for love, peace, moderation, and tolerance. We attach primary importance to the issues of development, especially in developing countries. Successful development hinges on respect of international community to the specificities, be they historical, religious, and cultural, of different countries. That means that the achievement of sustainable development should be related to the specific aims of each country and their level of development. This is why we have been actively involved in the shaping of the MDGs. In closing, I wish to stress that the change of our world and the various challenges that we face makes it incumbent on us to enhance the role of the United Nations and reinvigorate its bodies, and to push ahead with the reform of the United Nations so as it can keep pace with the change on the international arena. I thank you, sir, for your kind attention.
Doy las gracias.